The craziest injury I've ever seen as a neurosurgery resident, and you won't hardly believe it when you hear it, was when I was a junior resident. I was on call. I got called stat to the emergency department for a head injury. And I'm thinking, here's gonna be a person with a bad head injury and a coma. And I come into the trauma room, and here's this guy sitting up on a stretcher, and he's got an arrow right in his forehead. And it's not just any arrow, it's a big crossbow arrow. And, he was awake, he was talking, he was even cracking a couple jokes, but the situation was not funny. He needed to go for emergency surgery. How to take the arrow out, 101. The problem is, an arrow like this, when it goes through the skull into the brain, it has prongs that open up. And so you can't just pull it back out because the prongs are there. So we had gotten the CT scan. It went back about a third of the way in the brain. At surgery, we had to take off a piece of the skull on the front with the arrow and take it off as one specimen because you can't pull that arrow back out. You had to make an opening big enough to get the prongs out too. Surgery went fine. We reconstructed his forehead, sent him to the ICU. Later that night, I went home and talked to my wife. She's a pathology resident. And I said, Cindy, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Some guy had an arrow in his forehead. And she goes, yeah, I know. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I took care of that. And I said, what are you talking about? So she was on surgical pathology, that rotation. And so she had the specimen come to her. And so, she grossed it in, which means describing what it looks like, measuring it, examining it. And so she did that part of it. So it's crazy because, I did the surgery with this guy coming in, and then she did the examination of the specimen as a pathologist. The guy did fine. He left the hospital just like he came in, awake and talking. But it just shows you how resilient the human brain can be.